Tonight in the Arizona desert, Brett Favre leads the 10-1 Vikings against the 7-4 Arizona Cardinals in a matchup of division leaders. The 40-year-old Favre is looking to continue his remarkable run in this his first season with Minnesota. The NFL's all-time leader in touchdown passes and passing yardage is somehow, some way, quite possibly playing the best football of his storied 19-year career. And for the defending NFC champion Cardinals, Kurt Warner is expected to start tonight. He missed last week's game after suffering a concussion the previous week. We spoke with Warner on Friday about the factors that went into making those decisions last weekend and this, and that conversation with Andrea Kramer is coming up. Coming up immediately, though, the thoughts of Al Michaels and Chris Collinsworth as we welcome you to Glendale and the battle between the Vikings and the Cardinals. Let's start first, Al, with Warner's situation. As we mentioned last week in talking about Ben Roethlisberger, had this been even a year ago, let alone 4 or 5 years ago, likely that Warner would have played last week against Tennessee, but now caution is the word.
No question about it. He has a lot to think about, and he discusses some of that in that conversation with Andrea. But I was just down on the field. I talked to him 15 minutes ago. He said he feels great, feels fine, looks forward to having a big night. But, you know, he has, as he told us the other day, a wife, 7 children, and the rest of his life to live. And this is something that he wouldn't have thought about when he was 28 and he had his first concussion back in 2000, but it's clearly in the forefront of his mind in 2009.
In the forefront of everybody's mind as a football fan and a movie buff is the term the blind side. Well, if Warner starts tonight, protecting his blind side will be Jeremy Bridges in place of the veteran Mike Gandy, who is out with a groin injury. And who will Bridges have to block? Only Jared Allen, right?
Second best pass rusher in the league right now.
Let's talk about what happened in Pittsburgh today.
Wow.
The Steelers. Brett Favre has the Vikings at 10-1. The quarterback and his team could officially clinch a playoff berth with a win tonight over Kurt Warner and Arizona. Now, winning certainly makes everyone happy, but as Chris Collinsworth discussed with the future Hall of Famer last night, the Vikings have found out that winning with Brett Favre brings its own brand of amusement.
I was in Green Bay before the season. I asked some of the guys what would be the biggest difference with Brett Favre now playing for the Minnesota Vikings. And the answer almost universally was, he'll make it fun to play the game again. Is that part of the key of who you are and who you've been?
Well, I don't think you can fake it for too long. You know, I've never wanted to play the game and be fake. I can never guarantee I'll be good. But as long as I play, I can guarantee I'll have enthusiasm and passion for the game. You can't fake the passion. And more than anything, I think people and teammates respect that.
How much they respect when you smack them on the butt like that? I mean, because really, you've wounded a couple of guys around the league.
Yeah,
I've seen them limping out of there.
It's a bad habit, but
where did that come from?
I have no idea.
Has anybody ever wheeled around on you and go, oh, it's Brett?
I got Percy earlier in the year, and he turned around like he was getting ready to jump. I'm like, hey, wait a minute, just joking.
I'm your meal ticket here, big boy.
Percy, he caught it at the 10, was destroyed, and he held it.
Brett, 283 straight games now for you. You're going to break Jim Marshall's record. What does that mean to you?
It means a lot. If you'd asked me before I joined Atlanta or Green Bay way back when, okay, you're going to start. How many games do you think you play? I'll say I'll play forever. You know, I'm tough. It's pretty hard. But I told Jim today, I said, you know, for you hit every play. Sometimes I hand off and I watch and I don't get hit. So I think for you, it's even more amazing. And not to mention, he played in an era of concussion. Get back out there. We don't want to hear it.
So did you.
Yeah, you know, and people have asked me how many concussions I've had. I said, I don't remember. You know, there's probably no telling.
How many times do you think you played in a game
where I shouldn't have, or
with a concussion that today, knowing what we know in this environment with Kurt Warner and Ben Roethlisberger and in the news?
A lot. Here's my take on concussion. You have to really kind of take the players' take on, hey, I think I had a concussion. Well, you know, did you black out? No. Did you see stars? Well, every time you get hit, you see stars. So, I mean, no one would be playing if that was the criteria for playing or not playing. And so I don't know for sure. I know it's a violent game. That I do know.
So is the league going in the right direction with this concussion?
Yeah, I think so. But once again, there's nothing to say, guys, tough guys out there, they get up and they go, I think but I'm not saying anything because I'll be out, not only for this game, but for next week. There's this baseline, which I think is a good idea, but how far back the concussions go? You baseline to what? From 9th grade or from 3 weeks ago? So I guess there's only so much you can do.
But you're still having fun.
I'm having fun, from what I can remember.
Here in Glendale, Kurt Warner will play tonight after sitting out last week in Tennessee with post-concussion symptoms, a decision that made the 38-year-old quarterback a major character in the discussion that's been swirling around the league regarding head injuries of late. And in a conversation with Andrea Kramer on Friday, Warner talked about how complicated the issue is for players focused on the present, but concerned as well about the future.
What, and I use this word in quotation marks, scares you?
Well, I mean, what scares you is that you won't be able to do everything you want to do when the game's over. Whether that's 5 years, 10 years, 12 years, that you put yourself at risk, you injure yourself, and it causes, something to be off in the future. Yet, you still have the mentality of a football player, and you still know what it's all about, and you still understand the risk, and you still love to go out and play.
The mentality of the football player,
Yeah.
which means also understanding the dynamics in the locker room.
Sure.
What's it like to look at your teammates and think, do they believe me, or do they know I'm really out there for the team, or?
Well, the first thing is you can't worry about it. Not that you don't worry about it,
Do you worry about it?
Yeah. After not playing last week, you go into the locker room and, a coach walks by and doesn't say anything, or, player doesn't talk to you like maybe they did the week before, a couple weeks before, and you get self-conscious and you automatically start thinking, well, they mad at me because I didn't play? Do they think I should have gone out there? But at the same time, I take a step back and I go home every day and I say, that was the right decision to make. That wasn't right. I don't want to put myself at risk, and I hate that it, could hurt my football team. I hate that I can't be out there to make a difference in a game. But ultimately, again, I have to always step back and say, it's just a game.
There's a lot being made about the new return to play edict that's come down from the league. But it all comes down to self-reporting.
Right. And that's the dilemma. I remember going down and was walking down to talk to the trainers on Sunday morning last week. And, I contemplate to myself, well, if I lie to them, I can probably play today. And then, I kind of think to myself, what are you thinking? That's exactly what is wrong, with this whole thing up to this point, is players aren't honest, or organizations haven't been honest, where, there's a different agenda there. And the thing you have to understand is the NFL is trying to do the right thing. They're trying to protect the most important commodity we have, and that's the players, and trying to protect them for the future. And so you can't ever argue with that. The hard part is just that it's vague. Nobody has definitive answers.
Earlier in the show, Brett Favre talked about how many concussions he had. He wasn't quite sure, but you now have Kurt Warner saying he thought about lying just to be able to play in the game against Tennessee. What's going through your mind, Rodney, when you hear this?
Well, if I'm a football player and I'm in that locker room, I'm lying. I want to play. I'm a football player. My mindset is to tell the doctors a lie and get back on that football field. However, it took for me to retire to get 4 or 5 months away from the game, to sit back and really analyze the importance of really telling the truth and the importance of not lying and getting away from concussions.
But there's also the pressure of your teammates, and I think that's what Kurt's talking about, that you got to look them in the eye. And now you don't have to look teammates in the eye, so you can almost stand back and go, what was I thinking?
Well, every player has insecurities. Anytime that you're injured, you're thinking that the coaches aren't talking to you, or the players are kind of looking at you or whispering, saying, you know what, maybe he should have played. But, I'm proud of Kurt for the simple fact that he stood up and he believed in what he believed in, and he looked not just at the immediate future, but the long-term future.
And most players aren't going to do that. That's why, as a coach, you really couldn't afford to listen to the players. Every player came to me and said, hey, I can play. I can play. The doctors aren't clearing me, but let me go, coach. I can play. And that's why I think they came up with that baseline test. Brett talked about it. as a test that you take before the season starts to let everyone know where you are in your mental faculties. But even now, I know players who are kind of fudging that test, sandbagging a little bit, so in case they get a concussion, they'll be able to come back. It doesn't make sense.
Especially younger players, Dan, excuse me. Younger players are trying to establish a reputation and trying to prove their worth on a team. You look, it's kind of strange to see an older guy really feeling like he has to go out there and prove himself to the rest of the team, especially established players like Kurt Warner and Brett Favre.
Yeah, and Ben Roethlisberger last Sunday night.
Deliberately.
All right, Dan, and for the leader of the Vikings offense, Brett Favre, his arrival in Minnesota was more than a year in the making, ever since Favre unretired as a member of the Packers in the summer of 2008. And that's where we pick up Favre's conversation with Chris Collinsworth.
You always wanted to go play for the Minnesota Vikings, or at least I thought you did. The Jets were kind of forced on you by the Green Bay Packers. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, but, you know, I mean, I don't want it to sound like that, you know, oh, okay, I'll go to the Jets.
But if you put both of them on a platter before you last year,
doubt,
you would have been with the Minnesota Vikings.
For me to want to go to Minnesota.
But essentially at that time, not only did the Packers release you, but they also kept you from what you wanted to do at that time. And let's face it, you were the Green Bay Packers legend. It had to sting a little bit.
Yeah, you know, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that. I think it wouldn't have stung on either side if there would have been a mutual agreement. And if they want to go in that direction, fine. So let me go in whatever direction I choose. But that was not the case. You know, and that's what really stung. Not, you know, it wasn't that, boy, they don't want me. You know, that was okay. But it was like, but we don't want you to play at certain places. That stung a little
bit. In your long career, have you ever created another schism, or is this your first schism?
I didn't even know what that word. I guess I'd heard it. It's funny because I like to do crossword puzzles. Ever since I quit drinking 12 years ago, I started doing crossword puzzles. And after that deal came out, right at the end of camp, I'm like, schism. Not real sure what that means, but it doesn't sound like it's good. I get it in one of my crossword puzzles, so I actually knew.
No, you got schism in a crossword puzzle after?
It was, I think the clue was like church separation. Well, I got a couple of the other ones around it, and I kind of like, is this what I think it is? Sure enough, it was schism, so it helped me. If anything, it helped me in my crossword puzzles.
So you divided a church in Minnesota?
Well, I hope not.
Third down, 12 seconds to go in the game. Niners lead by 4.
Take me back to the San Francisco moment. Everybody's bought in one play. There aren't many times you can point to one play, but everybody was bought in on that one touchdown.
The schism was over.
It cleared out the schism.
If there was not enough pressure as it was, as I'm dropping back, I'm thinking, this is your chance to end the schism.
He gets away from the pressure, fires to the end zone. It's caught! It's Rick Lewis! Touchdown!
If I had to make that pass again, 10 times, I think 10 out of 10, it doesn't work. We probably won't even get there. So many things can happen. But the stars were in line. And, I'm thankful for that. But, yeah, I think that ended the schism.
I heard you like Minnesota, hunting, fishing. You're happy up there. How long could you play?
I have no idea what Brett Favre will do. I don't.
So you're as confused as the rest of us?
No, I wouldn't say confused. I think this year has been great, obviously. I know that the expectation level is high. And I also know how quickly, physically, after last year, it can go down. I'm not 30 and little things that I used to recover from just like that. I go out Wednesday and I'm like, oh boy, arm feels great, but the rest of it feels terrible. I'd be a fool to think next year I'll recover quicker. So I'm trying to give it everything I can each week, and hopefully at the end of this year, we achieve the ultimate goal, and I think that would make my decision a little easier.
You would walk then?
I hope I have that decision to make.
And Brett said he was looking for a mutual agreement with the Packers there to let him just go wherever he wanted to. They sent him to the Jets for a reason, right?
Well, they didn't want him to play in the division, and Brett clearly didn't want to go to New York. He wanted to stay in Minnesota and come out and play well for these guys.
Well, you also look at what he had there in Minnesota. There's a reason why he wanted to go there in the first place.
Definitely a reason why he wanted to be with the Vikings, and it's that talent around him. First guy he wanted to be with is Adrian Peterson, because all the focus in this offense is on Peterson. All these eyes are on him. They fake the stretch play, and Jameel McClain, the linebacker, has his eyes on Peterson. He should be covering Vasante Shanko, the tight end, man-to-man, play action, easy touchdown. Another weapon he's got, Percy Harvin. This is a middle seam read. He's got to get away from Charles Woodson in that man coverage. Harvin uses his quickness to get off the ball. Now, he and Favre have to see the same thing. Where's the opening? Here it's down the middle. And this is the confidence Favre has in him. 3 guys around him, but he believes Harvin can go up and get these balls, and he's done it all year for them. In the red zone, he's brought poise. Here his first read is covered. Kleinsasser, he goes out to Peterson, looks to him. He could catch it short gain. I'm not going to go there. Let me find someone who's open. He finally sees Shanko, and this is what Favre can do, gun these balls into tight situations. Here's a blitz in the red zone. Charles Woodson, notorious for coming on the blitz. He's got Bernard Berrien as his hot route on a quick out. Favre recognizes it, knows Woodson's coming, has that quick release and quick throw before the defense can react. Another red zone touchdown. This is actually the same play, but they don't blitz. And Berrien's covered. Favre improvises. This is classic Favre finding another weapon, Sidney Rice, and that's why Brett Favre is having fun. He's got a lot of toys.
Well, when he played with the Jets last year, the players felt like he got preferential treatment, that he was a prima donna. But now in Minnesota, these guys are really embracing him, and they love him.
But this is also the same offense he ran in Green Bay. It was different with the Jets.
This was the big thing for Favre. After all those times in Green Bay, he didn't have to change what he was doing. He came in, he knew the offense before he got there. That's a big plus for him.
22 picks last season, only 3 so far this season.